ACAC conference play beginning this week. You've got Woodland and Adams Central, probably as the two favorites, I would think. What have you seen from Woodland and what have you seen from Adams Central, and who do you think can come out when we're all said and done with the conference championship? Because, boy, it was interesting in the conference last year, for sure.
It was, and unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we will be able to build up that Woodland-Adams Central game to Week 9, because I think that's really what the conference is going to come down to, is that game. And it was obviously an epic game last year, coming down to the goal line stand last year between the two. So in terms, Adams Central gets a great challenge this week. They go on the road to LaPel. And, LaPel is a ranked team in 2A, is really going to challenge them. Win or lose for Adams Central, it gives them an added game to really learn a lot about themselves, because I think both Woodland and Adams Central, it's going to be a challenge to get competitive games for them leading into Week 9. I think Woodland has that Lima Central Catholic game that will be tough for them. And then other than that, I think both teams on paper should be able to breeze into Week 9, and they could both be undefeated going to that game.
Yeah, and sort of like Leo, as we mentioned earlier in the show, I think Adams Central is one of those teams where they got the win against Eastside, and they've played well thus far, but I don't know that we know enough about them at this point, because they've played 2 home games, and I don't know that we'll be able to judge based off next week, or this week, I should say, because we don't know that much about LaPel. I think it's going to be a while before we figure out Adams Central, where they are, what they've got.
Yeah, I guess, even if they don't win Friday at LaPel, if they come out, be competitive against a team that's in the top 10 in 2A, then we'll go, okay, this is a team that's going to compete. Because I think a lot of years we look at Adams Central and to a certain extent Southern Wells, those 1A schools, and we say, they're kind of a trendy pick in 1A in terms of rankings and stuff, and they have a good record, but you really don't know for sure until they get to 1A. But in terms of Adams Central competing against Woodland, I think the LaPel game will tell us a lot, because in a lot of ways, LaPel and Woodland are similar in terms of athleticism, what they like to do, and just a traditional power, which Woodland has become the last couple of years.
If you're Woodland, and Sherwood Haydock, how do you make sure that this team doesn't get complacent, I guess, during the regular season? I mean, you want to avoid injury if you're them, because you're thinking, this is a team that was one snowy Saturday away from playing for a state championship. How do you make sure you're healthy throughout the season? How do you make sure you're not complacent? And how do you make sure, most importantly, that you're ready for the playoffs when they come?
That's a big question, because last year they're undefeated. They go to the Week 9, and I think when you were dealing with so many sophomores like Woodland had last year, you get that complacency, and that's why I think Adams Central almost clipped them last year. So I think now their juniors are a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and Coach Sherwood Haydock can point and say, "This, you saw what happened last year. We want the similar thing to happen this year in terms of a deep run in the playoffs." So I think kids are older. They understand they're engaged, but you do have to guard against that, because their schedule is pretty light until they get to Week 9, and then Adams Central is a capable team that can knock them off. So I think, knowing that those kids went through a similar situation last year, were able to put it together and get all the way to semi-state, I think will help them in how they prepare for going forward to the final weeks of the regular season and the postseason.
I asked this question about the Northeast State. I'm going to ask it about the ACAC. Who's a team that can rise to that 3-4 spot? Because, once you get past Woodland and Adams Central, it's pretty muddled, I think, at this point.
South Adams, they beat Belmont last week. It's a great win for the Starfires, but then again, we don't know how good Belmont is. It's kind of the reverse of last year, that Adams Central Belmont Week 1 game, where we didn't know about either of those teams, and then Belmont ends up recovering and winning out into the playoffs. So, how good of a win is that over Belmont? Really not sure. But at this point, it's the only win that everybody other than the Adams Central and Woodland have that really kind of catches your eye. So at this point, I put South Adams, but I think that position, that number 3 spot, is still very much up for grabs.